GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show where we try to make sense of a president launching a meme coin days before his inauguration. What the heck is going on? I'm your host, Jay Hamilton. Bitcoin is above 105K. Sol is ripping up to 255 as of the time of the recording. The markets are green. If you thought that it was all over a week ago when everything was red, that was only a week ago, everybody, last Monday. Everything was red. Everyone thought we were over. And now we're back. And not only are we back, shit's going crazy. If you missed this weekend, you might have missed one of the biggest weekend in crypto. We're going to talk about a lot. Trump launches a meme coin. It reaches 15 billion in market cap pretty much overnight. Top 20 token in all of crypto. Eric Trump, everyone at first thinks it's fake. Everyone's like, this is fake. There's no way this is real. Eric Trump comes out. He confirms the validity in a bit of a ridiculous statement. A lot of us, is any of this legal? Like this meme coin has 80% of its supply has been held back. Its fully diluted value is like $50 billion at this point. We're going to get into all of this. What is going on here? Then, as if that wasn't crazy enough, then Melania Trump, she drops her own meme coin and it skyrockets. Trump meme coin drops in half. We all get to make a joke about divorcing your ex and how the best way to take 50% is to drop your own meme coin. Google search volumes skyrocket. Crypto is being searched all over the world. Solana was the biggest winner. DEX trading volume hits an all-time high, 27 billion DEX trading volume on Solana. Solana, whole ecosystem ripping. Solana actually has some congestion issues as a result of this. There's just so much that happened this weekend. Today, to join us to break it all down, we have Pranav Kanade, portfolio manager at VanEck's Digital Assets Alpha Strategy Division. Now, Pranav comes from a TradFi background. He's got over a decade in experience in managing financial assets and understanding how markets move. So no better person to join us today. Now, before we jump in, we're going to be covering Trump all week this week. The inauguration is happening right now as we're recording, but you can bet there's going to be news coming out every day. So we've got Scott Milker tomorrow. We've got James Safar from Bloomberg and the Bitwise boys, Ryan and Matthew, joining us later on this week to talk about Trump and the Trump effect and what you guys can affect. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you're listening so that you are up to date every day this week on the wacky, wild world that is no doubt going to be. Before we jump in, we just need a moment to hear from our sponsors who make the show possible. Meet Odos, the DeFi aggregator that makes your token swap smarter, faster, and a whole lot easier. Tired of trading like it's 2019? Odos finds the best prices for your swaps across 900 liquidity sources and 14 blockchains, so you always get more bang for your crypto buck. Whether you're swapping, setting a limit order, or just avoiding gas fees like the plague, Odos has you covered. It's like having a genius trader in your pocket, minus the coffee addiction. Join 3 million wallets already using Odos to power over 6 billion in monthly trades. Start making smarter swaps today at milkroad.com/Odos. Pranav, welcome to the Milk Road Show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what a day to have you, my man. Holy geez. You and I are talking on Friday, planning this episode. I'm thinking we're going to be talking about, Trump's inauguration. Maybe there's no news that comes out. I think I literally said we will talk about any news that comes out if there is anything. And here we are. We wake up on Monday and holy shit, what is going on? We got to jump right into Trump coin. Trump drops this meme coin on Friday. It's officially Trump's meme coin. Let's just, I don't even know where to start. There's so much to break down on this. Let's just start with what are your initial thoughts?
I've seen like the mix of responses from the crypto world, right? Obviously, in my opinion, price is the best signal, and the price tells you that in aggregate, people find this somewhat interesting and want to like speculate on it, which I think is kind of point number one. But my kind of reaction the day after on Saturday was the following, which is people shouldn't get too hung up on the fact that this is a meme coin. I think maybe I had two takeaways. One is that this is symbolic of a regime change, right? Until, very recently, the people who were experimenting in the crypto world were largely folks that, were sort of trailblazers or big risk takers. So like the general world, the Fortune 500 companies or, even people that could theoretically raise money from blue chip VCs to build whatever AI project in the world, were choosing not to touch crypto because of the perceived regulatory risk. And obviously we all know that the candidate Trump was very favorable towards this asset class, and that once he became president, there was a set of scenarios, whether it was through Congress or through the regulatory bodies, that enforcement on this asset class would come down. But the big question we always had was how quickly, right? Because things take time. So how quickly were all the changes going to happen, and how quickly were people going to then adopt the underlying technology? I think what President Trump did on Friday, and now obviously the Melania coin on Sunday, to me is like almost a little bit of like a green light for the rest of the world to just go ahead and experiment, right? Which is like, look, sitting president is experimenting with a meme coin on Solana. The market seems to appreciate in many ways. So, I think it takes risk away from companies that would have historically said, let's see what happens through Congress, or let's see what the SEC does in terms of rulemaking. So I think it takes away sort of this intermediate period of time where there could have been some stalling. People can now go ahead and experiment. That's kind of takeaway number one. Takeaway number two was really around the fact that you could launch a massive multi-billion-dollar asset right on a blockchain without investment banks and intermediaries or anything like that. It can form capital, and essentially capital moved from zero to tens of billions, and you can do that pretty seamlessly, and things didn't necessarily break. And so, again, I think if I'm a creator out there in the world, I know Mr. Beast came out and said I'm not looking to do a meme coin, but I think there's tons of creators out there that are looking for exit vehicles and those types of things. Launching a token for themselves or their project on a blockchain becomes somewhat feasible in the future. So that's just kind of like takeaway number two for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely there's no doubt that the change in regulation is coming when you have Trump launching his own meme coin. Like there's no bigger signal to every developer out there that America is going to be open to this type of innovation and experimentation. And I think you're right. Like there's capital. There's a new way to raise capital that we've never seen before that exists as a result of crypto markets, and here it is at play. Let's just chat. Did you buy Trump token yourself? I gotta ask.
I did not. So
I didn't either. I didn't either.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we don't mess around with meme coins in our strategy, and so it was one of those things. But I was an observer. I was observing how essentially Solana was performing through the entire process. I was generally seeing the flows of capital, so how people are getting access to it. I received several calls from people that are not in the industry saying, "How do I buy this thing?" So I was trying to help them think about that. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Certainly, it has brought a lot of attention, and I expected the attention to happen today, right, with the inauguration, and we're actually going to check a couple of stats, around will Trump say Bitcoin in his speech? Will he say strategic reserve? What's going to be his executive orders? You said yourself, there might be 100, 200 executive orders coming. These are the type of things I thought we were going to talk about, but what's going to capture media attention even more is a meme coin. Like this meme coin is going to get so much attention. Let's chat about Solana though quickly. Like that was definitely the big winner here, right? Like this Trump's coin is on Solana. Melania's coin is also on Solana. We saw highest DEX volume in history over the weekend. I think it was the stats. I can never get the exact stats. DeFi Llama said 25 billion. Artemis said 27 billion. So, but previous all-time high was 10 billion. That's on Solana alone. That's huge. What do you think the impact is here for Solana?
Yeah, so I've said this to a lot of people for the longest time because I come from TradFi, so I have a lot of TradFi friends, colleagues from that world, and I live in crypto, and people generally get hung up by the fact that a vast majority of Solana's fees, the last 18 months have been coming from pump fund and meme coin trading, right? Mm-hmm. I think over 2/3 of Solana's fees on certain days is really coming from that speculative activity. And people look at that and kind of dismiss the entire asset class or even Solana, the blockchain. And what I've always said, I think this holds true even after this Trump meme coin launch, is I personally believe that the end state for the use case, or the end state for most public blockchains, is going to be tokenized equities. Companies will no longer go public with their equity sitting in a DTCC ledger. It's going to be on a blockchain because a tokenized version of XYZ stock can still be a stock, but then have other properties. So it can be used for a variety of different things within a company's sort of business model. So to me, that's the end state. And I think everything until we get there is just a beta test of what's ready for that, right? And so to me, the entire 18 months of sort of meme coin trading on Solana kind of culminating with this one is kind of tells you how far you can push this system without breaking it. And even when things break, right? I think if you remember last spring, when there was a ton of meme coin trading activity, people were having trouble landing their transactions on Solana, and then the Solana Foundation people as well as Toli and team got together and engineered a pretty novel solution that didn't increase the complexity of the overall user experience, but just made it better. And so I think the world is watching that, right? If I'm a private company today and I'm asking, should I launch a token as my ultimate exit vehicle? And the question is like, where do I launch it? Well, there's been one system that's been battle tested now for 18 months. So anyways, I think it's all just a beta test for what's coming in the future. And so, don't necessarily get hung up on like the fact that these are meme coins that people are trading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point. Like, I think that there's going to be a big debate about, is this a good or a bad thing, right? Like, already is a raging debate on crypto Twitter if this is a good or a bad thing. I think it's really both at the same time, right? It is in the good category. It's a stress test for Solana, right? Incredible volume and transactions over the weekend. Is Solana ready for that? If we want to get to where we want to get to in the next decade, we need these type of stress tests. That's great. Coinbase, huge volumes. That's awesome to see. Like, that's a big step forward. We're getting more attention. Google search on crypto growing. That's great. Good for onboarding. Like, definitely, as you said yourself, I'm getting the same thing. A lot of people coming out and saying like, hey, how do I buy this? I've never maybe there's people who haven't bought crypto before, right? So, I mean, one thing that stood out to me was the number of holders. So Trump token has 850,000 holders. WIF only has 200,000. Bonk has 880,000, but that was done through an airdrop. That's a big deal to have 850,000 holders of a token. So, some good. On the bad side, definitely some bad here. Big opportunity for some bad things to happen at a very public level here, right? Like, we are now in the limelight, and who knows what happens next and where this goes. Not really great that like one token can drain liquidity from the entire system. Like, a lot of people, I think, are the number one question in our Discord server was, hey, are we all worried that like 15 billion just got pulled out of the rest of our system here and into one token? Like, that's a little bit concerning. And then also, I think the other thing is like, where does this lead with the fact that this meme coin was launched with 80% of its token supply held by Trump, like Trump or Trump affiliates or organizations that he controls. And the token unlock happens in the next 36 months, during which time he will still be president, most likely. Is he going to, did he just rug us all basically? Like, was his whole plan? I don't think so, but was his whole plan to launch a token right before he's inaugurated and then put in the rules to make sure that he's safe from any sort of, legal action on it? Like, anyway, so just to break down,
unpack some of the bads, the quote unquote bads, right? Number one, I don't think any of us sit around and say, hey, Vegas is bad, or hey, sports betting is bad, right? We just kind of assume it is what it is. People want to do this, and the markets have spoken. So who are we to judge whether something is bad or good? It's just observing. And so I kind of put meme coin trading in the same category of, people like to speculate and they're choosing to speculate here, then go to like, MGM or whatever to bet on red or bet on black. That's number one. Number two, the liquidity component is interesting because it did happen on a Friday night. Banks are closed. It's not easy to on-ramp fiat into the crypto world, right? So the first reaction function for people who want to get exposure here is going to come from selling something else when that's the case. So you'll have to see sort of what the net effect is once the banks are open next week. And so people can bring money in from the outside world into the crypto world. But what's it going to do with the 80% supply? That's the big question, right? Which is now there's all this theoretical value and people that find the asset valuable. So the optimist in me doesn't like to think that that's going to be used poorly. There's a lot of interesting things you can do, like some that could be like very charitable, right? If some of those proceeds are used for, victims of the wildfires in California, whatever. I'm just making it up. Like there's bad things happening in the world. So if that supply can be used for good, then I think it could set a very interesting precedent in the world, right? I think the market is just assuming the worst. Like, oh, this is going to get dumped.
Like, I mean, do you
whatever.
actually think that? Are you actually, you actually think that's possible though? Like, I hate to say it, but like, I don't like Trump's a capitalist. Like, I don't think he's out there trying to, you know, to just donate this money to somebody else. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, right? Like,
I mean, I saw this funny tweet that how hilarious would it be that if some of the proceeds from the 80% is used to buy Greenland, right? Sure. Like it's not,
yeah.
that's not charitable, but like, I guess like, you know, the cynical people on crypto Twitter are kind of assuming the worst. And I don't think it's as helpful to do that, right? Because maybe it's because we've been so used to many people in crypto being, you know, scam artists, and we've kind of been scarred by the last cycle of grifters that blew up the cycle. So I think we're all kind of like wired to think about it that way, but we don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting is, and then we will move on to other topics here because there's so much else to discuss today. But is in the past there's multiple Trump tokens. There's a bunch of Trump meme coins, right? Not associated with Trump or his team or his family at all, even though there was speculation that many of them were at different points. And you knew that that something was going to pump heading into inauguration day. What are meme coins in the end? They're attention coins, right? Whoever has the most attention, that's the meme coin that's going to go off. As you said before, we don't think sports gambling is bad. What is sports gambling? That's just betting on attention that we're all looking at that moment. So I think, you know, what would have typically happened is the meme coins that were launched by others not associated with Trump would be the ones that would do well today. Now, all of a sudden, you have Trump himself and his own team behind this. They're the ones creating this attention. Like in many ways, maybe they deserve that. And as you said, there is creators looking for ways to monetize. They should be able to take advantage of the attention that they're creating. And so I agree with you in that sense that like it's all experimentation, and experimentation is good. We don't necessarily need to judge it as good or bad, but certainly something to keep an eye on. I did not invest in Trump and would not touch it myself. I can only imagine the volatility that this thing is going to go through, like day to day. Like Trump tweets one thing, it's going to go crazy one day, and he's going to tweet another thing, it's going to go to zero the next day. Like it's just going to be it's going to be an up and down ladder. It's nonstop. Okay, let's go to the inauguration quickly. That's happening right now as we're recording. Trump has not spoken yet, I don't believe. But two questions I have for you. One is the biggest question is the strategic reserve. Let me bring up Polymarket. As of right now, I actually am amazed at what the number is right now. As of right now, Polymarket is saying 48% chance that Trump creates a strategic reserve in the first 100 days. Get your take on whether you think he'll make it in the first 100 days. But better question than that is it priced in? I think is the better question. And if it's not priced in, do you kind of have to buy Bitcoin, at least some of it? Do you have to hold enough of it at this point because of the chance of an SBR happening is just too big that you might be missing out?
Yeah, so I think there's two variants of this whole SBR concept, right? There's the Senator Lummis bill that I believe requires the government to purchase a certain amount of Bitcoin over several years. And I think the probability of getting that bill through Congress and ultimately to President Trump is relatively low because there's so many other priority items. Now, and then there's the executive order element, which I believe just essentially says don't sell the Bitcoin that we currently have, and then maybe move that to Treasury. And then the Treasury through the ESF can maybe add a little more, sell it, do whatever they got to do with it, right? So the question is like whether something like that happens. So again, I'll take the Polymarket odds on it. No clue, right? Now, if it were to happen, I personally think it's not priced in. And here's a simple reason why. So if you kind of look at Bitcoin market structure for the last 60 days, the reason, things stalled out generally is, again, observing this on chain, a lot of long-term holders had been moving their coins to exchanges, and you can assume that those coins are getting sold. So you have supply. And at the same time, the inflows into the ETFs had generally slowed down, and you get a couple of days of outflows, and even in the beginning of January. So essentially you have supply and lack of demand, right? Because prices ran up so quickly, you kind of have a lack of people finding the asset interesting, at least momentarily, to buy. I think having Bitcoin sit within Treasury or having something symbolic like this happening could catalyze a new cohort of people to kind of revisit this. Again, similar to Trump launching a meme coin and us saying it sort of de-risks it for everybody else to experiment with crypto. Having this SBR thing happen kind of could de-risk it as a potential investment or an allocation for many portfolios. So that could create a new cohort of buying. But yeah, that's kind of my takeaway on it. So it's always, as it comes to Bitcoin, a lot of things you think are priced in are never priced in.
Yeah, I think to me, nobody knows if or when an SBR will happen. It's clearly not priced in right now. I think that is clear. I think the question is, will Bitcoin dominance continue? Like, that is really the question on everybody's mind, is when Bitcoin has had such an incredible last year, right? 2024 was the year of Bitcoin, starting off with the ETF. Typically in a bull run, we would see an altcoin season, right? We haven't really. Solana had an amazing year last year, so you could consider that. But Solana was also down bad because of FTX, so it was kind of in a lot of ways just getting back to its normal rate. So will we see an altcoin season? I'll bring up Bitcoin dominance right now. Bitcoin dominance sits at 54.5%, but even got up as high as 57% yesterday. I think we were all thinking that Bitcoin dominance would be trending down by this point in the bull run, but it's actually been trending up the past few days. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's hard to say. Look, where Bitcoin dominance goes from here, but I'll generally make some observations, right? So peak of last cycle, which is kind of end of 2021, the altcoin market, which I define as essentially crypto market X Bitcoin, X Ethereum, and X stablecoins, kind of peaked at like 930, 940 billion approximately, and then we kind of went down to like 200, 300 billion through the bear market. Now we're back up to like essentially that same kind of 900-ish billion dollar market. So essentially we haven't added any market cap to altcoins. What you've observed is just sort of money moving around between the different coins. You've had a handful of coins drive massive outperformance, Sol being one, Sui being one. There are a couple of things in the AI category, maybe Hyperliquid, right? You have a couple of these individual coins that have really dominate performance, but I think they've essentially taken away market cap from other places. I think you've also seen the meme coin category kind of rise and take market cap, and it's taken away, let's just say, share from your average DeFi project, right? So essentially, you've seen a reshuffling of this market. And the way I view, the market, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is essentially the altcoin market, is kind of has two pipes in. Pipe number one is retail, right? Opens up a Coinbase or whatever account, moves fiat in and then does something. Or pipe number two is through conduits like us, like institutions like us. I would say, generally speaking, flows into institutions like us has generally been steady, hasn't accelerated or anything like that. Even after the election, things haven't necessarily accelerated. So the one pipe coming into the altcoin world has not really taken off or anything. The retail pipe has potentially accelerated post-election, but it's really allocated into a very specific set of coins. It's gone into Bitcoin, I think, because it seems like a low-hanging fruit bet for retail. Then it's gone into a whole bunch of meme coins because people just want to have fun. I think people genuinely find trading meme coins fun. So that's where retail money has gone. So anyways, I think whether you get a big alt season or not is really a function of institutional capital coming in to the altcoin space through conduits like us. Because there's not other ways for it to come in, right? Like most large institutions aren't going to open up their own Coinbase account and start buying different alts because they don't have the expertise to do that. And at the same time, there's not ETFs for like all these alts, so there's no real pipe in. So in our opinion, we operate with the assumption that capital will come in when it comes in, but in that intermediate period of time, while the market is somewhat static, there's a very specific set of alts that will win. So you won't get full blown alt season. You'll get sort of similar things like what you saw with Solana the last 18 months, where a very specific type of alt will perform. Now, capital starts to come in, then you'll see a real alt season.
Okay, I want to talk about which alts will perform, but before we do, I just want to understand this like institutional pipe a little bit
Yep.
more, because I think that that's something that a lot of our listeners are very interested in, but maybe don't follow and don't understand because we're not professional traders working at a professional firm like you are. So why, like, why isn't that institutional pipeline growing right now? And when might it grow? Like, any predictions or expectations of is Trump regulation the key thing that they're all waiting for, and like that's what's going to make this pipeline go?
Yeah. So if I think about the traditional pools of capital that allocate all assets, right? So endowments, foundations, pensions, sovereign wealth funds. Yeah, those are probably like the largest pools. And then there's family offices. And then there's the RIAs, which are essentially the wealth management channels. They all kind of move in different they all move at a different pace. And they all have different mandates, right? So if you look at a pension fund, their mandate is they have liabilities, which is pensions they got to pay out for people. And then they have assets. Most of the time it's, stocks and bonds, and they need to generate a certain return with that. And the argument always is like, hey, even having a small allocation to crypto in that asset pile can really accelerate those returns and help you meet the liability hurdles and so on. So for every sort of pool of capital, there's a different reason why they should look at crypto. I think if you think about the folks that work at these organizations, they've historically been there for a long time. They have obviously their own kind of individual bias, but more importantly, a lot of them are sort of, rewarded for not doing crazy things. They don't want to lose their jobs, right? Like, so what would get them to lose their job? Well, they take pensioner money and then allocate it something, and it ends up being like the next FTX, right? So like there's like sort of that, job risk element to it. So after the blowups of the last cycle and then all the regulatory lawsuits and sort of litigation stuff that's happened to this industry, all the schools of capital have just said, this is too hairy for me. I'm not going to touch it. The family office world is a little different, because if you're a billionaire and, someone's managing your money and you're a billionaire who likes this asset class, then you will sort of experiment with it. So that's really been where like capital inflows have been coming from. But everything else, which is a vast majority of institutional capital, stayed away. So it's our view that having regulatory clarity, aka sort of having, let's just say, the US government say this is okay, will give a lot of these people at these organizations cover to then allocate to this asset class. Because, we talk to a lot of these people, and the individuals responsible for allocating to crypto, these places get it. They understand it. They like it. They might even be dabbling in this stuff in their PA, right, in their personal accounts. So they all like it, but again, they don't want to take job risk touching this stuff. So I think our view was, Trump comes in, you have a new SEC chair, you have a new CFTC chair. Even if you can't get something done through Congress, if you can at least get like a safe harbor rule done through the SEC, it gives a lot of these folks some cover to deploy capital in. What Trump did launching a meme coin might be actually an accelerant to all of this.
Right? Isn't
right?
that? I was
like,
say,
like it's like
there's
like I could
right
always
there.
like it's like, if I'm one of the hardcore crypto lovers at one of these large institutions who's been patting the table for the last couple of years to his team to allocate to crypto. Now I have something to say, which is, hey, look, like the president of the United States and the first lady just did this. So why shouldn't we have exposure to it?
Right. Because in order for us to get the regulatory clarity that you're talking about, and there's a few different levels of this. We've got like the legislative regulatory clarity, which would take a while. I'm not a legislative expert, but like that's we're talking in years, not months now. Then we've got more SEC, CFTC, perhaps making a statement that, like safe harbor, like this type of thing. It's not legislative, but it's a statement. And then we've just got Trump doing stuff basically as like it's not really regulatory clarity, but it's a signal. So because I think the thing that everybody wants to understand is like, okay, when is this going to happen? I think everybody gets that, like, yeah, the institutions aren't really here yet. The big money isn't really here yet. But then when? Like, is it, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is it this year? Is it still years away?
So it's just funny. So I had a couple of my colleagues go to DC on Friday for the crypto ball thing, and the people that were there as well. There was a lot of optimism that you could get legislation done this year. At the very least, you could get some stablecoin legislation done. So we'll see, right? I have fingers crossed. something happens in DC. I think two things need to happen. A, you need to have real adoption of the underlying technology for kind of productive things. It can't just be pump fun, right? And I think stablecoins are ready for that. So to the extent, traditional businesses are given the green light to experiment stables to kind of just improve their own underlying business models and unit economics, and that creates like true adoption. That's a story that will resonate with the allocator community, institutional allocator community. So that's when that money will also come in. So those things are coinciding. It's like, give me some clarity so that people can adopt this thing and leverage the technology for all the good things it can do. And then that also gives the capital sort of reasons to allocate. So let's say that who knows what legislation will happen or not. There's reasons to be optimistic. I think so. So I don't know if you've ever read Commissioner Hester Peirce's safe harbor proposals. She's, I think, got two variations of it. There was one that she put out maybe 18 months ago. But essentially, what that safe harbor rule from the SEC does, if implemented, is it kind of establishes that tokens can have light touch regulation, sort of as long as they meet a certain set of criteria. And they have like a path towards, let's just say, decentralizing, or if they're not going to decentralize, they have to have certain reporting requirements on a periodic basis. So it kind of sets a set of rules for tokens to exist and for retail to participate in tokens, and then have sort of, transparency around them. And as long as projects meet those rules, they can get listings on exchanges and kind of exist, and things are safe. You're not going to get sued, right? Obviously, that was not implemented in the last SEC regime, but I'm cautiously optimistic that it could happen in the next several months here quickly.
Yeah. I think I'll get the link to the safe harbor note that she wrote, or proposal that she wrote, and we'll include it in the show notes because that's very interesting. But I think people don't really, and you can't understand this unless you worked for the Biden administration or for the SEC for the past 4 years. The change that is coming is like, it's the biggest 180 of all time. Like, you can't even comprehend how different things are going to be. Now, okay, when this regulation comes, what are these institutions going to buy? Are they only going to buy the Bitcoin and the ETH ETF because that's all they can buy, or are they going to buy other things as well?
So I think a potential world of where all this kind of ends up in 18, 24 months is something that looks like the Coin 50 index. Have you come across this thing? Mm-hmm. So, Coinbase kind of put together like essentially it's like 50 coins, kind of like market cap weighted set of rules. It looks like the S&P 500 equivalent for crypto, right? Some version of that or something like that should be an ETF one day, assuming obviously the regulatory environment allows. And because I don't think it makes sense to like go through like the top 50 coins and have an ETF for each coin, right? And so I think that's where you might end up, and that might be the easy access vehicle for a lot of large institutions.
Very interesting. And it's great. We're getting James Seyfarth from Bloomberg on the show later this week. We will ask him what he thinks the ETFs they're going to come out this year will be, because he'll have a really good idea on that. Let's talk about going back to what you mentioned before, which was, okay, we're going to see an altcoin season. That is likely. What will it be the same as last cycles? Maybe not, where every altcoin pumps. That seems also likely and something that you're suggesting. So what tokens or categories do you think will perform well in this bull run?
Yeah, so I think the market has generally told us what it likes when you put kind of meme coins aside. It's told us that it likes good products that are different and useful, coupled with a founder that's trustworthy. People generally want to see someone leading a team and kind of continuing to ship and make the product better. And then coupled with a lack of supply overhang, i.e., people would say market wants fair launches and don't want VCs. It's not as simple as that. It's not like, VCs are the problem. It's how tokens are launched and sort of the vesting schedules and the overhang it creates with supply being the real problem, right? So to the extent you can get a price discovery happen early in the life cycle of a token, such that you don't have a supply overhang and you have a fair price in the market, the FTV isn't too high, there's not a big delta between market cap and FTV, And then that way, folks know that they can buy it and then assume that, they're not going to like have this thing go down 90% on them because they're constantly getting dumped on. That's a good token structure. So I think that's the combination, which is good product, clean token structure paired with trustworthy founder. And so, I think a lot of those will be found more on the application side, not on the infrastructure side. So not another kind of layer one or, scaling solution or DA or whatever. Those are all just kind of, to me, infrastructure that leads to nowhere at the end of the day. So I think that those are the properties we're looking for as when we're looking at what alts might perform.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when you look at categories, like the category that stands out to me is DeFi, because like we can talk about, look, I'm not putting down meme coins or AI agents, which really are just meme coins right now too. But like there's narrative based categories, and I think yes, those categories will do well if we have this raging bull run that everybody thinks could come in 2025. Then yeah, sure, but that's all narrative based. Which means they're probably all going to drop 99% at the end of the cycle. The fundamental based category that interests me the most is DeFi, because, as you said, TradFi and institutions are coming. Regulation is going to become more clear. When TradFi and institutions look at this, my bet is that they're going to say, okay, what do we understand? Well, we understand finance, so therefore probably understand DeFi easier than we can understand AI, right? Well, DeFi has incredible products that have great fundamentals, have great revenue streams, have proven product market fit, have great founders, all the things that you're saying. Do you think that DeFi has a big year in 2025, that category?
Well, I'm actually going to challenge you and disagree with you. I think AI agents will be a huge category. Kind of but I do think as a byproduct that certain DeFi projects will do really well. But it's always been my belief that if you're kind of like looking at crypto as like a new construction, DeFi is like the scaffolding. You still need a building, right? Because like people so far have only used DeFi to like just kind of farm different things. Like ultimately, it's like I'm going to loop some trade and like farm some airdrop and whatever. So like you haven't had like productive assets you can use this DeFi around. So you need that. Again, eventually I think it'll be tokenized equities, but AI agent tokens can ultimately be tokenized equities as well. And let me kind of expand on that, right? So everyone agrees, whether you're in crypto or not in crypto, that agents will be a big thing, right? I want to be able to have a nice like travel agent travel agent that will help me book my travel, like discover places to go, all this stuff, do all this work for me. I'm sure there's like tens of teams competing to build the best travel agent, and so on. You can kind of go to like, oh, I want a really good like shopping agent, or I want a really good agent that will help me pick out my outfit, whatever. Like there are gonna be a lot of different types of agents and different teams competing for that. Ultimately, I don't like. It's hard to imagine. Well, two things. I think teams that are building agents are likely going to be small teams, and they likely won't need a ton of funding, and they likely can never be public companies either, right? So if you build like a really good travel agent, you might be making revenues in the tens of millions of dollars and not billions of dollars. And as a result, you're just a small business. And so if you're that team of 3 or 4 guys that built a really useful agent that's built on, ChatGPT 4 or 1 or whatever model underneath, and you're looking for an exit, a token might ultimately be the right instrument for that. A token that captures the economic value of the agent itself. It's not what the category is today. People are still experimenting with all this stuff, but I think that's where we might end up. You might have a really good agent that everyone uses, and that team says, you know what, I should have a token that's attached to this agent, capture the value created. And when that happens, then now you have a set of productive assets that DeFi can be used for and leveraged with.
So do you think AI agents is currently sitting, I actually haven't looked today, but it was 17 billion market cap the last time I looked. Let me pull it up quickly. 14 billion now, man. The volatility of AI agents is just wild. But probably most of that is just because it's been moved over to Trump coin. You think AI agents as a category is one of the biggest categories in this cycle?
Yes. It's like I've been in the space since 2017. And Um, there've been two times where I've been kind of genuinely excited by what is possible. One is during the ICO mania, just observing that founders around the world could raise capital without any intermediaries. That was interesting. Obviously, everyone broke securities laws by doing that, but like I think there was like an interesting unlock there and what's possible. And the other time around was actually like DeFi summer, because that truly showed you that you can democratize the use of financial products, and you could again get rid of a whole set of intermediaries. Like the NFT stuff was kind of interesting, and then people try to like do things with gaming and NFTs, and then there was all GameFi. All the stuff are like kind of like variants of like what was available previously, so they're all great. Deepin has been interesting, although you haven't had like a killer Deepin app take off. Like it's still conceptually interesting, but I think Deepin ultimately will be huge, but it will take time for things to get massive there. I think this agent category is like very net new in what's possible, and I think people will eventually get the business model right. And I think those things can have a very quick go to market. You don't have to wait 3 years to see if these things will take off or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm also very excited about AI agents in this cycle, and also think it's going to be huge. Pranav, this has been an absolute pleasure. I've been scrolling Trump's inauguration to see if anything has happened so far. Apparently, all we've missed is Melania Trump is wearing a big brim hat, so Donald couldn't kiss her on the cheek, and people talking about how it's just a bunch of tech billionaires on stage with him, which there you go. That's what we got. It's time for the tech acceleration administration. That's for sure. Been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Pranav. We'll have to get you on again in the future. Appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thanks for listening in, everybody. We'll see you every day this week with more and more information. Keep you up to date on Trump. Have a wicked awesome day. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly what we are buying. This is your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this show is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening in, my friends. Have a wicked awesome day.